Good afternoon. My name is Joe Bandel. I am the last Rosicrucian. Today, I'm going to do a kind of what I think of like a weekly update on the situation, Gaia's ascension situation. But things are very interesting, and it's kind of I don't want to share things that other people are sharing. I want to share things that are unique, that are valuable, of value. One of the things that I'm going to be, that I'm, what I'm going to share today is information about a person's the developing astral bodies and the shadow, working with the shadow, trying to integrate the shadow, because I've been saying this all along, but I want to say it more emphatically now. The shadow is erupting, and the shadow contains all those things that you have repressed and hated about yourself, uh, that you've struggled to control, to keep under wraps. And what's needed, what's required, is to forgive some of the bad things, to understand some of the good things about the shadow, and to integrate it as your best friend, basically, as strange as that sounds. Um, what I'm going to share an experience that I had. This was probably 30 years ago. It was a long time ago when I had this very powerful vision about connecting with and integrating my own shadow self. It was very powerful, very profound. Maybe it will help each one of you to kind of understand what we're talking about here. I had a dream, and it was a subterranean. It was deep under the earth, and it was a huge cavern, and there was like a sea, an ocean underneath in an underground ocean, and somehow there was light, and I was walking on the beach, and I could see okay, and there was even some waves on the ocean or sea, whatever you want to call it, and there was a sea monster out there, and I was fishing for that sea monster, trying to, and there was a cord. It was an astral cord that connected me to that sea monster. So, like fishing, it was a line. I was actually pulling it in. I was fighting against it. I was pulling it in at the same time. I was very frightened because it had just these big teeth. I mean, it was savage, and it was snapping and biting, and it was terrifying, really. Uh, but I was pulling it in, and part of me realized that that cord meant that it was actually part of me. It was an astral cord between me and it. But I pulled it, as I kept pulling it in, and I pulled it up to the shore after a terrible fight. So it got closer and closer, and then when it hit the shore, it transformed into a pale yellow alligator that had a stub tail, and it was no longer fierce. It was, and I called it my alligator puppy. And it became my pet, and it walked beside me. And its job was to protect me, to keep me alive, to protect me. Because ultimately, that's what your shadow really is. It's trying to keep you alive. It's trying to protect you. And it can be very vicious and very powerful in doing that. So anyway, that was the first transformation that I noticed about the shadow self, going from a sea monster to that alligator puppy aspect. And I'm going to put something out here. And I'm going to say that, like in the order of bards, ovates, and druids, and a lot of Celtic traditions and some magical traditions, they talk about dragons. And that sea monster self, that shadow self, was actually my dragon self. It was a dragon. And I know that part of me, my soul, on part of my soul journey that I've lived through Earth, I lived as a dinosaur, one of those vicious dinosaur things that was alive when the dinosaurs ruled the Earth. That I went through that as well. But anyway, it was the dragon self. It was my dragon self, and I was taming my dragon self, as opposed to all these Middle Ages where they had St. George and the dragon trying to slay the dragon, as opposed to trying to make it a pet to protect you as a part of yourself. So you'll see some symbolism here. That's the dragon symbolism, but a lot of it's being misinterpreted because the goal is to integrate and learn to love that alligator puppy, because its job is to keep you alive, to protect you. And the distortions that we have piled onto it they make it even worse. They make it into the enemy when it's not enemy. It's not intended to be an enemy. It's intended to keep you safe and keep you alive, and to do whatever it needs to do that. That's what I learned from this experience. And so it took a long time. There was several months, and I could kind of sense that alligator puppy walking along beside me during the day. I could just kind of feel it doing that. Then, even more strangely, it kind of turned into like a serpent, if you will, just kind of going along beside me, but still having that pet quality or that protective guardianship quality. And then gradually it merged and became humanized. So I just fully integrated it to where I learned to accept it more and more. And over the years, I've had a lot of visions or vision images of reptilians and they've always kind of had that serpent type shape, but it's the dragon energy that you're talking about. And interestingly enough, uh, the sense that I had was kind of being repelled by these other entities, reptilian entities, but it was never direct conflict. Never. It was kind of like a mutual agreement. You stay on your side over there, and I'm going to stay over here. We're not going to fight with each other. So with all these years, I've never been in a direct fight with a reptilian type. It's always been a standoff, keep your distance type of thing. However, I did have one instance where in this, it's like a vision or whatever, but it was like an astral encounter where a serpent with these fangs, you could call them like poisonous fangs or whatever, tried to bite me. And I had my arm out and I let them try. And they couldn't do it. They tried or whatever, but it was the fear that was trying to. That's what really it was about. It was okay. Back down. You know, who's going to back down or whatever. And so that was the encounter. I was tested and I passed. It's like, go ahead, bite. You can't hurt me. And they couldn't do it. So in the terms of, we're hearing a lot about these reptilians, and we're a lot of bad, you know, those being the bad guys or whatever, and I'm not arguing with that. What I believe is that they are, how would I say this? Cousins. They're cousins a little bit. But the point that I'm getting at is each one of us has that reptilian part inside of us, the reptile brain, the whole nervous system that's connected to the reptile brain, that is very deep and goes down to the etheric level. And because it's very deep, it's very important that we purge it that we confront our fears about it and try to integrate it, because each one of us has that aspect of, each one of us has a reptile brain in the middle of our head here. And in working with developing astral bodies, what I've recently discovered, I've recently found out, when you are trying to integrate your chakras, once you have integrated the chakras and have them so they can communicate with each other, one of the tasks to do is to start activating that reptile brain, because the good things about that reptile brain are the toughness, the ability to rejuvenate itself, the vital life force that just won't quit, the intelligence, the smarts, it's all in a package. Because what's kind of my understanding of what's happened is the original humans were pretty much reflected by that reptile brain and the nervous system that was fully developed along with it. And when the other space brothers and sisters came along, they started adding to that. So we would say they started adding other chakra center qualities from the other chakra centers, specifically those from the, we'll say from the heart center, the throat center, the third eye center, and the crown center. So the higher chakra, the higher attributes or qualities were grafted onto that reptile brain aspect. And they're kind of at odds with each other, which kind of leads to the duality that we have as humans, and we're always kind of the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other shoulder type of thing. But our heart knows. Our heart is where the solution, the resolution of paradox, our heart is where that takes place. And our heart is where we can learn to integrate the shadow aspect, and where we can bring into awareness things. This is really important now, because this is one of the things that I've been trying to share in different ways in the last few videos that I've had. The stress is building within society. There's a conflict, a duality conflict that's going on, or that's seeming like impossible to bridge. It's not impossible to bridge, but it seems like it's impossible to bridge. It has to be this concept of duality as conflict, duality as war, duality as good and evil, has to be reframed as duality as a loving embrace, duality as male and female, working toward a common goal. That's the solution. That's the resolution. In a lot of mystical traditions, they have what's called the alchemical marriage, which is the marriage between the physical body and the soul. Or you could say the part of us that is connected to the earth, or Gaia, and the part of us that is connected to source, or the photon level, so that there's a bridge that goes between them. And because of Gaia's ascension, the new energetic dynamics, which have just actually come online for serious this year. I mean, it's happening. The shadow is erupting. We've had a lot of stress, a lot of examples of it happening, where people are popping, there's more psychotic behaviors coming out. knee-jerk reactions, anger flashes, things, people saying things they don't mean or they're sorry about that they're sorry they said later on, that kind of thing. It's only going to get worse because that energy channel that represents the shadow needs to be open. And I believe that by the end of this year, it's going to be open. All hell's going to break loose because of the activation of the shadow. And those of us who have been doing shadow work or doing the work over the years, we understood that a long time ago, and we've been working on it. We've been trying to do it. Some of us have actually did a pretty good job of it. But now it's hitting everybody. And that's what I think is going on. And that's why in the last 2 videos or whatever I've said it's not going to work to just share meditations with people anymore, because what the danger is your paradigm, your belief system may be so, the cognitive dissonance between your personal beliefs and reality may reach a point where you shatter, where your whole sense of reality shatters, and that is a very, very bad place to be. But that is a place where more and more people are going. And just the practice of meditation itself is not going to be able to hold it together. You need some the meditation practices that I have taught, the energy ball meditations and things like that, they accelerate and they speed up the process. But if your framework of reality, if your personal paradigm is not cohesive enough, if it's not able to hold together, that very powerful meditation will blow things apart. That's why I've suggested becoming familiar with some of the concepts in the Oak Matrix Unleashed, which are simple, right in front of your eyes type of insights, self-evident things that will build like blocks, and they'll help your personal paradigm to hold together a little bit more. I'm going to tell you right now, if you rely on the news or the news, the mass media, the collective media, there's going to be a shattering. There's going to be a time where it's going to be real bad. That's all I'm saying. Try to get real. Get real. No more head tripping. Experience. Go with what your heart tells you. Go with what you personally experience in your life. And go with what keeps you human. Because we need as many humans as possible. We need as many people that feel emotionally, that have emotional intelligence, and that have compassion for some of the stuff that's going on. We need to forgive, and we need to move forward. That is the ultimate thing. And to me, as I sit here today, if I'm thinking, well, what is the most important thing to share with everybody today? It is realize that collectively each individual shadow is going to erupt in what they have repressed, what they have held in and run from. Their greatest fears are going to show up. We need to start dealing with how to minimize the damage that could bring. One of the most powerful ways of doing that is filling your head with good information, selective information. Information of duality is love. Duality is male and female. To focus on the fight, to focus on division, you get what you radiate, what you send out. So I'm just trying to warn everybody. This is the third or fourth video that I've shared that's trying to share that basic idea, that basic concept, because I'm seeing it happen now. I'm seeing it in my own mind, where I can watch something, I can watch a video or whatever, and I am deliberately missing things because my own filters are blocking it out. We only see what we want to see. And I see some of these videos and I go back and I rewatch them 3 or 4 times, and suddenly something sinks in that totally went right over my head. And I'm like, if it's happening to me, and I'm pretty open-minded, but I'm still, my brain is refusing to pick out or to understand completely the message of some of this stuff. I'm like, if it's even happening to me who is aware of this, it must really be happening to people who are they don't have the training that I have. We need to be really careful about feeding into the conflict, whether it's the conflict inside of us or the conflict with other people in our lives, or the global conflict, or the idea of duality in general. We need to really be careful. So I'll leave you with that. That's the message for this week. I'm going to try to come back with something next week as well. Thank you, guys.